Welcome back to Amit's Leadership Compass. This is episode 3. This week, I'm talking about a very powerful conversation Gordan Ramsay had on the High Performance Podcast with Jake Humphries. Now, for those of you who know me, I would say the High Performance Podcast is probably one of my favorite podcasts. It really combines two of my passions, sport and leadership. Anyway, Ramsay, I would say his leadership style isn't one that fully aligns with me, but like with any high performers, it's just about cherry picking the things that do resonate and how you could bring them into your own leadership journey. Ramsay himself is famous probably more for his anger than anything else, but what this episode highlighted to me was that this anger stems from a refusal to accept average. It's a brilliant look at what it really means to set standards, to take hits, bounce back, and keep pushing when things get tough. So what were my key takeaways? There are quite a lot, if I'm honest, and I'll try and whittle through them quickly. The first one that really stood out for me was that he says, if you want to be the best, you've got to work with the best. And he was very clear about that. On his culinary journey, he was able to learn from Marco Pierre White. He put himself in kitchens where the standards were brutal. And he wasn't in his comfort zone. It was very uncomfortable. It wasn't easy. But those environments shaped him. Why? Because growth doesn't happen when things are easy. It happens when you're stretched. And Ramsay has highlighted that many times throughout his career. The second thing that I would say that was a key takeaway for me was Ramsay's ability to get up and move again. He did this so many times in his life, from the poor relationship he had with his father, the financial struggles that they had, him having aspirations of being a footballer, but unfortunately getting injured on his first game, which ended his career. He didn't sit still. When he was faced with a challenge, or a knockdown, he got up, dusted himself down and moved forward. That was so admirable. It happened so many times within his life. The third key takeaway for me was about how Ramsay talks about, if you're going to do something, do it properly. I say in jest, don't be an Arthur job. And this is, I suppose, what Ramsay's trying to say, that if you're going to commit to something, then do it 100%. Do it with pride, because half effort just doesn't show. It just becomes who you are. Half a job, Arthur. And when you do something properly, you feel it. It gives you pride, and because there's a standard there and there's integrity. For me, that's a really key leadership skill set or value. The fourth takeaway, which I'll probably say is my favorite, was about Ramsay talking about learning to dance in the storm. So Ramsay says that, success is not clean. It's life is very up and down, and storms are guaranteed. Pressure, criticism, setbacks, they're all part of, our journey of life, of leadership, everything. You can't just sit there waiting for the storm to pass. You've got to learn to move in it, or as Ramsay eloquently said, dance in it. The fifth one, and this is quite a common theme when you listen to high-performing podcasts, is that hard work is a differentiator. Not talent, not luck. Hard work, consistency, discipline. He says someone's always working, so to make sure you're that person who's working to ensure that your success. And talking about success, that leads nicely into my sixth point, is that success requires jeopardy. If there's no risk, there's no meaning. Every one of his decisions, there was a risk involved. He had to risk a flat that he was going to buy with his wife. One thing I liked about what Ramsay said was about not taking feedback personally. He said it straight. Feedback is about your professional life, your work life, not your identity. So try and get a thick skin. That doesn't make you cold. It just helps with the clarity the differentiation between personal and professional. And the last point I'd say is, which is probably the one that I've recently learned that is important in leadership journeys, that you just can't keep everyone happy. That's impossible. But as long as you do it for the true heart and you do it for the right reasons, and you're able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, yes, I did right, that's the most important thing, because as leaders, we have to make tough decisions sometimes. So my key takeaway, I would say, is the fourth point, which is about never fearing the storm and learning to dance in the rain. Why? Because there have been many times in my own personal journey where the pressure has been intense. Financial pressure, deadlines to meet, expectations, people watching, people judging, and the instinct can be just to wait for the dust to settle, the storm to pass. But that's not how leadership works. Because calm's not guaranteed. We're all going to face, unfortunately, storms in our life, and the growth is in that storm. Don't let the storm define you. How you carry yourself inside that. That will be your defining moment and how you stand out. So for those of you who've listened to the podcast, or just from what my quick key takeaways, I'd like to hear your reflections and what are your key takeaways from Ramsay's mindset. So please do drop in your comments. That'd be greatly appreciated. That brings the end of episode 3. Thank you for listening, as always, to Amit's Leadership Compass. Please do like, subscribe, and go check out the full episode between Gordan and Jake on the High Performance Podcast. I will drop the link to the podcast in the comment section. I'm sure if you do listen to it, it'll be absolutely worth your time. It's definitely one of my favorite podcasts of this year. Until the next time, please look after yourself, keep growing, and look forward to continuing on this leadership journey